well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. Great to have you with us today. Jason Rantz going to join us from KTTH Radio in Seattle, Washington, here in just a couple of minutes. We're going to talk about everything that has gone on in Seattle while, most of the violence and the looting has subsided since the last time we spoke last week. There are a few exceptions to that rule. One of those would be Seattle, Washington, where you now have an autonomous zone that has been set up. You're now leaving the United States of America when you enter this 6-block square area of Seattle. No police, which means that theft is apparently a problem. Apparently, some homeless members of Seattle's population ended up stealing all of the food from the autonomous zone on Tuesday night. There have also been reports of at least one violent crime there in the area. If only there was a group of people you could call when somebody steals your stuff or somebody commits a violent crime. Wouldn't that be great? Anyway, we'll talk with Jason Rantz about everything that's going on in Seattle coming up here in just a couple of minutes. I do want to let you know, though, one bit of good news here. The Connecticut Citizens Defense League had filed a federal lawsuit, against Governor Ned Lamont and the Director of Public Safety in the state of Connecticut over the suspension of gun licenses in the state. Now, in Connecticut, you are required to get a gun license in order to own a handgun that also serves as your license to carry. And when the coronavirus erupted across the country and all of the stay-at-home orders got put in place, Governor Ned Lamont in Connecticut and the Department of Public Safety had told local authorities, you don't have to take fingerprints anymore. For the time being, you can just stop taking fingerprints, which in turn stopped the processing of gun licenses in the state. So a federal lawsuit again filed, and on Tuesday, a federal judge, an Obama appointee, by the way, it's worth noting, actually granted an injunction against Governor Ned Lamont's order, told the governor he has a week to revise his order and to start these local departments issuing permits, start the process of taking fingerprints so that people who want to exercise their right to keep and bear arms can actually do so, because they've been denied that ability to own a handgun. Unless they are, currently a gun owner, you cannot buy a handgun in the state of Connecticut right now unless you're already a gun owner, unless you already have that gun license. And that is a deprivation. That is an infringement of the right to keep and bear arms. The state had argued that, look, this is a temporary thing. It's only because of COVID-19. Federal judge said, maybe you could have made that case, in the first couple of days after this stay-at-home order got put in place. But now we're talking about months down the road, and at a time in which gun sales are probably the highest that they've ever been in this country, at a time when the National Shooting Sports Foundation estimates that there are 2 million Americans who are new gun owners this year. Again, in Connecticut, those who are hoping to become a gun owner, a handgun owner for the first time in their lives, are being told they can't, entirely because of the actions of the state of Connecticut. And so a federal judge has put a stop to that. We will see if Governor Ned Lamont actually appeals this decision. On the one hand, I wouldn't be surprised. On the other hand, I think that Lamont is likely to take the loss, even at the Court of Appellate level or the Court of Appeals level. And I suspect that it would be easier for Lamont to say, well, okay, listen, this really was just temporary. We were going to open things up anyway. It's not like the judge really issued a smackdown. I was already going to do this. I think it's easier for the governor to save face if he doesn't appeal this decision. And so I expect that we will, in fact, see the licensing resume in the state of Connecticut here before long. All right, so there's an update on what's going on out on the East Coast. On the West Coast, it appears to be mayhem, at least in Seattle, Washington. Again, that's where we find our guest today, Jason Rantz, talk show host at KTTH in Seattle, who joined us to talk about all of the latest developments on the ground. Take a look and a listen. Jason, thank you so much for coming on the program. It's good talking with you today.
Good to see you.
It's good to see you. So I just got to ask, man, what is going on in Seattle right now?
What's going on in Seattle is that the city decided to essentially cede over property, public property, and even private property to a group of protesters. That's sort of this group collection of anarchists, Antifa, and community organizations in the Capitol Hill neighborhood of Seattle. This is a place that is pretty community activist driven. A lot of the people who actually are part of the movements live in or around this area. And they've taken over the East Precinct, which is the police department in that neighborhood. And they're now calling it the People's Department. And they've decided to put up their own, oddly enough, form of borders in which they now call it the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. So anything goes from their perspective. They're in charge. Police are not even allowed to go in there, period. It's rather remarkable. You even have armed Antifa organizations that are apparently wandering around that neighborhood, providing the security for it.
Unbelievable. And last night, I understand that protesters gained entrance to City Hall with perhaps the help of one of the city council members. Is that right?
Yeah, it wasn't perhaps, but it was with the help of the Seattle City Council member, Shama Sawan. She is the leader of this movement. She is a socialist. I think she is dangerous. The way she talks about her political enemies. I mean, she's created this little army of people who are willing to do her bidding. Now, what's interesting is that because this organization that currently exists, and we're calling it an organization just for the sense of talking about this community, they have a lot of different people in it from different political perspectives. And they don't all agree specifically on what they want. They have listed they put out a demands list on Medium last night. But some people are even taking issue with Shama Sawan because she's now trying to turn this into a tax on Amazon, which is her current thing. Everything she talks about is going after Amazon because this is a socialist who wants to destroy capitalism. So she's trying to now commandeer this movement by her own supporters to turn it into taxing Amazon. It's truly weird.
That is weird. What are some of the demands that are coming out of the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone as opposed to the city council member?
Yeah, so they're not coming for a defund police message. They're saying you have to abolish the police. And in the meantime, before you're able to fully abolish the police, they want to get rid of every single weapon that an officer has, including batons. So not just guns, not just shields, but also batons. They say they want to end the school-to-prison pipeline, which is always kind of funny to talk about. Seattle is run by Democrats, progressives. And so if you want to talk about the inequalities that are happening at Seattle schools, rather than what they just did, give a raise to the teachers, maybe address some of those issues that Democrats are in charge of. Some of what they want to do is also retry every African-American who's currently in jail. And they want a whole host of things like de-gentrifying the Seattle neighborhoods that have been gentrified, and they want rent control. So, I mean, this demand list is like 30 deep.
So I got to ask, I mean, Seattle is obviously it's a very, liberal left-leaning town. But what is the reaction to what's going on there, Jason? Are you starting to see people say, whoa. Listen, I'm all in favor of, criminal justice reform. I'm all in favor of, fixing what needs to get fixed, but this is absolutely crazy, or are people embracing this?
So it's kind of weird. We're still in Seattle, we're still in a phase 1.5, we're calling it, for the coronavirus lockdown. So a lot of people are still staying home and they're working from home. And the media, thus, is not able to really connect with these people and do the traditional man on the street stuff. So the only people that the media is actually talking to are folks who are in this autonomous zone. So it's kind of unclear as to where people stand. Now, as a talk show host, I cover all of Western Washington, so I hear from people generally outside of Seattle who take a normal human being position, which is, what in the world is going on? This is absolutely insane. It's absolute madness. But right now, the only ones who are getting in front of cameras are the people from this group. Now, 2 nights ago, a friend of mine who's a reporter at the Fox News affiliate, it's a local station, she was out there and she was not just accosted by a mob of these Antifa losers, she was assaulted by them. So they perceived her not to want to tell their story. And so she literally had to seek refuge at a firehouse so that they wouldn't assault her again. The only media right now that's covering it are talking to these people, and thus they're able to get out their message. And we're not really hearing from anybody else. Meanwhile, the mayor of Seattle isn't doing anything. The chief of police isn't doing anything. However, we did get a press release yesterday to find out that they're doing cleanup for the autonomous zone and adding bathrooms for them. So as long as we're making it really, really easy for domestic terrorists to take over a land, kudos to you. I mean, there's a reason why we consider Antifa this designation for terrorism. And I think this is part of it. It shows you how far they're willing to go in order to gain some sort of ideological advantage on their enemies.
And so, I mean, I guess the next question is, where do you see this going from here? If the mayor is not taking a stand, if the police are being told to stand down and, evacuate the East Precinct and leave it to these protesters, where does this stop? And do you think this is going to continue to escalate?
So they've already, the groups involved have already decided that they're going to take more precincts. Last night, they tried to take the West Precinct. The cops put up a rather large presence there because the West Precinct houses the 911 call center. But I can tell you that behind the scenes, there are different departments or different groups within the department planning how to give up potentially their other precincts. So this is going to end poorly. Now, if they choose not to leave their autonomous zone and not try to expand their 6 blocks of property, at some point the city is going to have to take over. And when they take over, that's when the violence happens. The reason why they have this right now is the chief of police and the mayor were getting political pressure from this council because cops kept having to use force to protect themselves and the community. So they just decided to abandon it. But at some point, they're going to have to go back in. And when they go back in, I can guarantee you that there is going to be violence and there's potentially going to be bloodshed. And obviously, that doesn't benefit anyone. And so if this mayor, Jenny Durkin, doesn't get this figured out, she's going to have a literal insurrection on her hand. And that's going to be incredibly dangerous.
Absolutely. Well, listen, my hope is that at some point, some cooler heads can prevail, but I don't know how many cool heads are there on the scene right now. It sounds like we got a lot of folks who buried their head in the sand instead. Jason, as always, sir, it's great talking with you. Thank you for everything that you're doing. If folks want to listen from around the country, get that feel from right there in Seattle, how can they find you online?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at Jason Rantz, JasonRantz, or just wherever you get your podcast, search the name Jason Rantz and then add show to it, and you'll be able to subscribe.
All right, brother. Thanks so much for coming on the show, sir. It is great talking with you, and I look forward to doing this again soon. Appreciate Jason joining us on the program. We will be having him back again here before long. It sounds like there's no shortage of stuff to talk about from Seattle. Right now, let's get to today's Armed Citizen story, our good deed of the day. Our recidivist report. Let's start there, shall we? From WANE with a story about a man arrested at a protest in Fort Wayne, Indiana, arrested for hurling an explosive device at a trooper. As it turns out, Juan Gonzalez, the suspect arrested, known to police both in Indiana and in California, where he was convicted of murder. Yeah, WANE says that investigators with the Indiana State Police, Fort Wayne Police Department, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosive Task Force were able to positively identify Mr. Gonzalez of Elkhart, Indiana. According to a probable cause affidavit, the incident happened around 8 p.m. during a protest back on May the 30th. During the protest, which at the time was turning violent, according to authorities, a man with gang tattoos, dressed in khaki pants, no shirt, and a red shirt, covering his face, was spotted tossing a water bottle with 2 objects attached to it towards officers. The device landed near Indiana State Trooper Tyson Waldron, and it exploded. Waldron was struck and cut and in major pain, according to the affidavit. He was taken to a Fort Wayne hospital, later released, but was out of work for several days. After the explosion, the affidavit says Gonzalez ran off, but was struck with a tear gas canister on his back. He was arrested over the weekend. According to authorities, he had a slightly scabbed over back injury that appeared like he had been hit with a tear gas canister. ATF task force officer and Fort Wayne PD bomb tech said the explosive device was likely a, quote, overpressure device. Now he's facing charges of detonating a destructive device or explosive, possession of a destructive device or explosive, battery by means of a deadly weapon, battery against a public safety official, rioting, and disorderly conduct. And according to WANE, again, this is not the first run-in with police that Gonzalez has had. Originally from Santa Ana, California, last known address listed in Elkhart, Indiana. According to authorities, last year, Gonzalez faced charges in Elkhart Superior Court for possession of methamphetamine, criminal trespass, and domestic battery. In October, Gonzalez took a plea deal. He was sentenced to 1 year in the Elkhart County Jail. That was back in October, 8 months ago. Don't know how long he actually served, but certainly out on the streets by May the 30th. An affidavit of probable cause indicates that the battery was committed against Gonzalez's then girlfriend inside her home, and court documents also reveal a, quote, lengthy criminal history, including a murder conviction in California, for which we don't actually have a lot of information, but hopefully we'll provide some more details here in the days ahead. But Juan Gonzalez should have been behind bars on a domestic battery complaint, instead was out on the streets protesting police and allegedly throwing explosive devices at an officer. Our armed citizen story of the day from Berkeley, Missouri, where a gas station employee ended up shooting a armed man who refused to leave the store. This, according to KMOV in St. Louis, Missouri. They say that the gas station employee was at work, the BP in Berkeley, Missouri. Guy showed up, flashed a gun, refused to leave, and then tried to enter the area of the store where the clerk and the cash register were located. That's when an employee then pulled out a gun and shot the would-be robber. Police say the man taken to a hospital for treatment. No word on what charges that individual might be facing, but the employee who protected himself and others apparently not facing any charges at all. Finally today, our good deed of the day from Michigan, Van Buren Township, Michigan, where a state trooper in the right place at the right time, able to save a driver from a burning vehicle. This was on Interstate 94. Michigan State Police Lieutenant Michael Shaw says a car caught on fire with a driver inside. Trooper was headed to the range, actually, for training day when the call came in about a vehicle that was on fire eastbound. It was pulling a boat. The boat had separated off of the trailer. Trooper approached the vehicle, saw the vehicle and the boat both on fire at that point. Michigan State Police say the trooper instantly jumped into action. Lieutenant Michael Shaw with the Michigan State Police says as he got to the driver's side, he noticed that the male driver was actually slumped over the wheel. So he wasn't able to get into the driver's side. He went over to the passenger side, hit the window to get inside, dragged the driver out of the burning car. The lieutenant with the Michigan State Police says that they later learned that the driver had a diabetic attack behind the wheel, and what actually caused the fire was when he passed out, the foot was still on the gas pedal, dragging the boat behind it. The wheel was spinning in place, eventually caught on fire, causing the vehicle to catch fire as well. Thankfully, both the driver and the state trooper are okay. And again, in the right place at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. We thank that Michigan State Police trooper for his very good deed. Now, listen, before we get out of here, I want to let you know about something pretty cool. President Trump's birthday is coming up on June 14th. No better time to express your gratitude for the president, all the work that he puts into our great nation, than by taking a moment to wish him a happy birthday. So all you have to do is text June, that is June, to 88022 to wish President Trump a happy birthday. Again, that is June to 88022 to wish President Trump a happy birthday and to join him in the fight to keep America great for 4 more years. That's going to do it for this edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company. I want to thank you for being a part of the program today. We'll be back with you tomorrow with more of the latest Second Amendment news and information from all across the nation. Also, for our VIP Gold subscribers, doing a live chat today with Ed Morrissey from Hot Air and Shipwreck Crew from Red State. Now, if you missed that live chat, you can always catch the replay if you are a VIP Gold member, and we certainly do appreciate each and every one of you who has joined up, who has become a subscriber, got that access to the analysis and the commentary and the things like the live chats that we're doing as part of Town Hall Media. We certainly do appreciate your support. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Until then, be safe, be well, be free, and we'll see you soon with another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company.